Hi everyone, I'm Allie with Potomac Beads. Join me in making these fun macrame silk earrings. It's an old technique used in a new modern style. So gather up your materials that were listed above or below me in that little drop down arrow. You can get links to purchase them from us at PotomacBeads.com as well as PotomacBeads.eu. So we're going to be doing a really simple kind of half hitch knot. Chances are somewhere in your past you have done this simple macrame knot. I'm going to be doing this around these antique brass perfect circle rings, and I'm using 2 to stack up just to get a little bit of a thicker look. These are 30 millimeters and they are kind of on this thinner side. They're about a 22 gauge square wire, and I am stacking them again. I'm using size 8 silk cording, and I have this Griffin beading silk. I'm using half on one of my earring and half on the other earring. We also have our 80 Toho brand Permafinish rose gold seed beads, and these 80 seed beads, you're going to use 19 per earring when you're working with them. We'll eventually then put them on some ear wires, and I'll be using probably some gold filled or some gold textured earring to go on to this. To start out in making this design, what I have done so far is just taken basically the half that's left. The Griffin silk comes on a card that is 2 meters long. I've used 1 meter for the first earring, and I'm going to use the second meter on this second earring. We're going to end up putting on 19 of our seed beads here, and we're going to do 5 of these knots between each one of our seed beads. So you're going to go ahead and you can lay this out. If you want to, you can pre-count those seed beads into groups so that way you know exactly when you are done. So there I have 10 and got an 11-0 in there, and 15 and 19. So I'll remove these little 3 extras here. I've got my small pile here of 19. I know that I'm ready to go. Tying on here, you can see I'm just leaving a tiny little tail so that when I get to the end, I can tie these 2 tails together. It'll be short because you're going to be using pretty much the whole thing. The Griffin silk, when you start, you take the entire thing off the card. At the end, it has a little basically twisted wire that's flexible and is going to act as a needle. You're going to take this silk here and you're going to put the silk over top of those rings, and they're just again sitting side by side. The silk cording then is going to go from the right side to the left and underneath and into that little loop that you have created. It's going to come through that loop and you're going to pull the whole bit of your cording through it. Go ahead then and pull tight, and that'll go up right next to the knot. Now it's going to slip around a little bit on the form. If you don't want to do the form the whole way around, you can actually put a little piece of wire here to act as a stop, or actually glue it in place. I'm going to go over again how to do it. We're going over, kind of making a little loop on the right hand side, going over those 2 bars, and then coming under and coming and bringing the cord out through the center of that loop that I made on the right hand side. Push it up next to the last one, not over top. And you can see then if you give a nice tight pull, you're going to get a little bump that's happening to the right hand side. Eventually, as I add my beads, that bump I will push out so that way it sits along the side of the piece and not kind of towards the interior. I have 2 done. I have 3 more that I'm going to do, and then I'm going to add my first bead. So I'm going through here, and you can see it gets really quick actually as you do this. When you do the first one, it takes a little bit longer because you have more cording that you're pulling through. After each one, I kind of press up that little knot and get that going. So that was my 3rd. Now I'm going to go through and do my 4th, pulling that through. You can kind of see off screen too there at the top, I have it that it pulls the whole way to the top. Push that up to the last one, and you'll be able to count how many in case you lose count. I can count how many cording passes are here. 1, 2, 3, 4. That first one is just my knot. 1 more goes on, and those knots are always going to stay to one side. Like wire working, macrame requires kind of that precision that when you don't do it nicely, it's going to look all jumbled. After I do that last little knot and kind of pull it in place, nice and tight, I'm going to take the end of my cording here grab on to my first bead and push that up. Now you could preload your beads on here, but the problem with that is when you preload your beads on, you have to bring them all through this loop here. So it's almost a little bit easier to have them hang out there. Now when you have the bead on, you want to make sure that the bead is sitting next to that last bump and that it doesn't get involved in the knot that you've created. Give a nice tight pull. You can see it's naturally going to want to stay and have a little bit of a gap between the 5 knots that you did originally and where the bead is. That's because obviously the bead is that thick and it's naturally going to pull there. We're eventually going to push that together and move that up, which is going to pop that bead out. I'm not too concerned originally if it is nice and tight along there. I can do that as I go and push all of these knots closer and closer together. That is now my first knot after my bead. Here's knot number 2. And remember, every 5 is when you're adding your bead. You'll be able again to count the number of times that the cord passes over the ring to be able to count to that 5. Number 3. And you can see those cording and that knot there. I'm going to push nice and tight against the piece. I don't want a lot of extra cording showing. Number 4. And then number 5. After the 5th knot, we add on bead number 2. And after that 5th knot too, I'll just do a little push up and push those pieces together. You can still see I'm still on the side. It's not until I get a little bit further along that I'll push this to the top of the piece. It's not going to affect it if I wait to do that. From here on goes my next bead. Pushing that up next to the last knot, kind of ignoring the fact that it's even there, and going in and doing my loop over the top, pulling the cording underneath, and then through the middle of that loop. You can see if that bead kind of shifts down, you just want to make sure it doesn't get into your knot. You can push it up and have it be along the piece. There you go. So you're going to continue on the whole rest of the way till you have your 19 on, and then basically we'll have a gathering spot here where we don't have any beads because we're going to put on our ear wire. So knot away and keep going. So if you want to change up the color or add a new cord, what you're going to do is take your previous cord and kind of lay it down along whatever you're wrapping. Take your new piece of cording, and I've changed to that kind of bright coral color, and you're going to tie that along. So the thing is, these look cool in all blue, but I'm actually going to go back and take apart a little bit of that all blue and add in this coral color, because I have a shirt that I think it would match really, really well on. I have one blue coming after my seed bead here, but by the time I push this down, I want this kind of corally color to be a new one of my links. So I'm just going to let that hang out there. I will use a dab of glue here when I add in, but basically now I'll go into that being my first of my 5 knots and go back in to, as you can see now, pulling through all of this here. I also have the tail of this original one, or this new one rather. I have the tail also tucked underneath that I'm holding and knotting around, because I don't want that tail hanging out, because I don't need to knot anything onto it. Pull that down a little bit and then do your first one of your knots here, and we'll do a couple more knots, and then I will go in and actually cut off that extra tail. It'll kind of hang out underneath there. It'll make it look a tiny bit thicker, but I'm going to cut off both of those thread ends in 2 more passes. I will then after it go ahead and glue that area also. So you can transition to coloring, kind of doing this micro macrame by pushing the cords down along the piece and then cutting them off once you get a couple knots that are covering them. And you can see now with this longer piece of cording, starting with a new color to get that little bit of a color pop, how much longer you have to pull through that cording and doing that knot. So here's my basically second knot in along there. I'm going to push it towards the top so you can see it a little bit better. And there's my color transition that I have in, and you'll be able to have it pretty seamless and flawless having that color transition. So I have 2 more knots to do with this color transition. I am going to go ahead now basically since that's tucked underneath nice and well. I'll do one more knot, and then I have a nice little pair of scissors here, and I'm just gonna trim down those little ends. If you know that it's not gonna move and you don't need to do anything else, you can also do a little bit of your dabbing of glue. I would recommend Loctite glue to glue down that little bit of that crossover. So as you get close to the two colors, I have in my 4 knots here, I'm gonna do my 5th knot, and I'm actually adding one more bead because I want it to be continuous, and since I'm changing up the colors, we're gonna end up with 20 beads on each. So I apologize for that. Sometimes halfway through a video, I change my mind and I get an idea and change it up. So there's the 5th one here. And I'm going to add my last bead, which would be my 20th bead. And basically what we did was 5 knots first in the blue. To hold my beads in place, I'm going to do 1 knot after my seed bead, coming through the back, and I'm kind of pushing that tail out of the way. You can, if you want to, tuck that blue tail in underneath your knots as you get closer. I'm keeping it out because I'm just going to do a really simple knot and knot the two together and then grab some Loctite glue to go over. So here I have in the piece, and I should mention while you're doing this, you're really kind of pushing along the piece here, and what that's going to do is tighten it up so you don't see any of the ring. You can do a different design where you see the ring exposed, and that'll just get you a different look. From here, I'm gonna bring these 2 thread ends, the blue one that I have here and the orange one, and I'm going to literally just tie it in an overhand knot. So I have the 2 blue pieces that I'm gonna tie with that orange piece. I'll then go into my first blue hoop and take the last couple knots out. It's really simple because I did not glue it yet to do some transitioning and changing. Now this blue got a little bit short while I was pulling it, so I got it in there, got that nice little knot, and a nice tight pull will get those 2 situated. Now you want to have, excuse me, a nice pair of scissors or a thread burner to kind of burn those down where they have it. I'm going to go in now with some of my glue and just glue right on basically that knot of the bump, and then glue a tiny, tiny bit onto the ends of each thread so they do not fray as I'm doing it. But basically then this has that nice transition that it goes from one color to the other pretty seamlessly, and you have that nice full hoop transition here. You can see a tiny bit of the blue poking out there. I'll take my thread burner or my cutters and go ahead and burn that down or glue that down as well. So now I'm wearing my fun micro macrame earrings, and you can see that I face them so the coral color is on the outside of both, so they're kind of a mirror image. Just put a small jump ring through the 2nd in 8/0 seed bead on the blue color and hung them from some fish hooks. So you can see kind of how they hang and the look that they give. They give that nice kind of bohemian chic look. You can do these all in one color. You can switch up, do as many colors as you want. You can do it with embroidery floss if you want a little bit of a different look. You can even do this with some KO or some smaller thread for really a micro macrame look if you don't want to do it with smaller loops. Hopefully this kind of strikes your imagination. Remember doing some of these knots maybe from childhood and having fun with this macrame. Remember, if you need any of the materials, you can look below the video in the little drop down menu, or also in that show by hitting that show more button. You can get links to shop with us online at PotomacBeads.com as well as PotomacBeads.eu. And then remember, you can always subscribe as well as like this video. If you subscribe and hit the bell, you'll get regular updates when we go live, when we have better beater episodes, and when we have new tutorials and ways to strike your imagination. Thanks so much for watching, and enjoy your own micro macrame earrings.